Do you have a second home?
It's Sissy's Soup.
Well, Mexico is my second home. I've been going to Mexico for many years. There are so many people and places that I love there. It made me so sad to hear about the terrible earthquake in central Mexico. It's so horrible. I've been to many of the places that were affected, and I wanted to help. But the only thing I could think of to do was to make a donation. So I did that. I was reminiscing about the wonderful times I've had there, the wonderful people. So I thought I would tell you a story that will give you an idea of the danger that many Mexicans live with all the time. Well, not that many years ago, but before the drug wars started, Bubba and I went to Mexico for a little rest and relaxation. We flew to Mexico City like we usually do, stayed there a few days, went to some of our favorite places. Then we hired a driver and headed south to Puebla. Puebla is a magical place. Lots of wonderful food and beautiful architecture. That's where they make Talavera pottery. So we stayed there a few days, and we had our driver to take us over to Cholula on the way back to Mexico City. Cholula is known for having a pyramid so enormous that they were able to build a church on top of it. Well, Bubba and I love it there, and we went up to the top of the pyramid to see the little church. We walked up the road to the pyramid, and when we got to the church, Bubba said he wanted to sit quietly and meditate. I walked around outside the church to take pictures. On one side, you could see the city of Puebla all laid out beautifully, and on the other side, you could see the two volcanoes, Popocatépetl and Iztaccíhuatl. Now, I know the story about these two volcanoes. In ancient times, Iztaccíhuatl and Popocatépetl were lovers. Iztaccíhuatl was a princess, and her father sent her boyfriend Popocatépetl off to war. The king promised Popo that when he returned, he could marry his daughter. But the king was sure that Popocatépetl would never come back, that he would be killed in battle. So after he sent him off, he arranged for some suitors to call on his daughter. His plan was to marry her off. Well, Iztaccíhuatl got so angry because her father had treated her boyfriend badly that she took a dagger and she killed herself. She could have just said no, but I think she must have been a teenager. Well, when Popocatépetl returned and found her dead, he was beside himself. He carried her lifeless body for miles up to the top of a mountain and laid her in the snow. He thought the cold would revive her. But he froze to death himself, sitting there beside her in the cold. One of the ancient gods took pity on the lovers and covered them with snow. Blankets and blankets of snow fell on them, and eventually they became mountains. Mountains of fire, volcanoes. You can still see the two of them, Iztaccíhuatl laying down and Popocatépetl sitting by her side. But every now and then, in his rage, Popocatépetl spits fire and rock down on the people living below. Well, I had a great view of the two volcanoes, and I started taking pictures. All of a sudden, I noticed there was a little puff of smoke coming out of Popo. I thought to myself, well, look at that. And then there got to be more smoke, and more smoke, and more smoke, and I started to panic. I ran to get Bubba, but I couldn't find him. He wasn't in the church. I didn't know where he could be. I was getting frantic. I wanted to get him and get to the car and get us out of there before the volcano erupted, because that's what I thought was happening. It did seem odd that the local people were just standing around like nothing was happening. I just knew we'd all be killed. I was about to lose it. I ran up to this lady who had a little boy with her, and I said, Señora, el volcán está haciendo erupción, which means, lady, the volcano is erupting. She looked over at Popo, and then she looked back at me and smiled. She nodded her head and said, Siempre, señora, siempre, which means always, lady, always. Well, about that time, Bubba came up behind us and said, what's up? I pointed up at Popo. Yep, he said, Popocatépetl means the smoking mountain. I looked at Bubba and said, now you tell me. I was so embarrassed. But then I got tickled at myself for getting so worked up. But you know, I started to think, people who live near volcanoes live with the constant fear of eruption all the time, or earthquakes. And it happens so suddenly, and nobody can predict it. Well, if you are able, please donate some money to earthquake relief. There's a website that'll help you pick a reliable charity. I'll put the link down below. All right. As bad as I hate to, I have to say, it's good to quit talking to you. Now go make a donation. Go on, get out of here. Go on. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.